Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. John Flucke. I'm the Technology Evangelist, and welcome to Technology Evangelist Podcast, where we're going to discuss some pretty cool leading edge things as we get going. My guest today is Sean Ryan of Medidenta and Medidenta Digital. Sean, thanks for coming on and making yourself available to me.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's interesting. About 2 years ago, I thought I spoke to a doctor, and the doctor said, "Man, I have a room full of equipment, and I don't know how to use it." And at the time, had a little interest in 3D printing, but I wasn't all in. And I thought, well, that's unfortunate. I have the luxury of selling a handpiece that they've used, and when they open it up, they plug it in and it works, right? So I thought, if I wanted to get into 3D printing, which everybody's getting into it, if I wanted to get into it, how could I do something that separated us from the rest? And my thought was, why don't we do something that's surrounded by education, right? Instead of selling people equipment that they don't know how to use, why don't we teach them how to use it and then let them decide if they want to buy it? If they buy it from me, great. They buy it from somebody else, great. The more people that are using 3D equipment and resins, the better off we're all going to be, those that are in the game, right? And there's a lot of people that are in the game. But we thought, what can we do differently? Medidenta is an 80-year-old company. We sell handpieces, we sell prophy angles, preventative, restorative, a little bit of endo, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. We have over 1,000 SKUs. But what could we do that's different than just carrying a brand of printers or carrying a line of resins? And we centered it around education. And we thought, let's go down this path. So we built in our facility, we built a state-of-the-art educational system. And we connected with people like yourself and figured out ways that we could teach people how to use this equipment, even in remedial ways, simple, basic printing, and that they can kind of grow, but give them an ROI out of the gate. Give them the ability to learn how to use this stuff. So when they get home, they get back to their office, they know how much space it's going to take. They know what kind of staff they're going to need. They know how the technology works, what they're up against as far as software. Does it have to be ExoCAD? Can they get away with the standard software that comes with the equipment? What kind of support are they going to get? We can talk about all those things in person. This, for me, is an extension of that. We created Medidenta Digital, which isn't a selling site. It's mainly describing the mission that I just said, simply creating an educational place that's safe. It doesn't force you to buy anything. It doesn't force you to lock into any pre-tariff, that's a bad word, but pre-tariff pricing.
That is a bad word.
But now, why don't we learn about this stuff? Let's see what we're up against. And if you want to move forward, at least you have a little bit of information. That was the goal.
You know, and I think that's genius. I have had situations in my career where I helped doctors integrate tech, or I'll be doing a lecture at some meeting somewhere, and we'll take a break, and people come up and ask me things, and it's pretty amazing to me how many times a doctor is asked to invest in something that's expensive, and I'm talking about like CAD CAM or expensive like hard tissue lasers. And a company will deliver the equipment. A salesperson comes by who is usually the person that sold them the equipment to start with, and they'll talk to them a little bit and then they'll slap them on the back and go, "There you go, happy trails." And they become, like a coat rack. Or I mean, literally, I went in one time to an office where it's kind of funny. The laser company had actually called me and said, "Yeah, we've got this doctor that bought our equipment, and the staff called us, and the doctor isn't using it. So could you go out and and spend a day with them?" And I said, "Yeah." And no joke, I walked into the office, I walked back to the doctor's private office, and his winter coat was draped over this like $85,000 piece of hardware. And I love the idea of, you know, is this for me? Whatever the tech is. I'm not sure as the doctor. I don't know. It's an investment. It's investment in time and money, and my team's got to be behind it. So this whole idea of test driving the thing before you make the decision, I think is great. And then plus, I think what's really good about it from the industry standpoint is doctors talk to each other. I mean, especially now that we're all so connected. And if if I buy something and I don't know how to use it, and then somebody says, "Hey, didn't you buy XYZ?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, it was a complete waste of time. I couldn't make it work, or I didn't know how to make it work." Well, then the other doctors are like, "Okay, well, I don't want to do that because it's so complicated or whatever the reasons are."
Yeah,
Because peer-to-peer stuff's so important. So
it
being
is.
able,
You guys trust each other as you should. You know, it's
yeah,
super easy to sell. I've been selling my entire life. It's super easy to sell something. As long as you understand the information, as long as you can be a little bit smarter than the person you're selling it to in that topic,
yep,
meaning
yeah,
otherwise, what do you need me for, right? But in this arena, everything is so fluid, everything is changing constantly. No one is a true expert on this stuff.
right.
So just come out and learn from the best people that you possibly can, whether it's through a podcast, whether it's online through a blog, whether it's coming into a seminar and reading something. So I have a quick story.
Yeah,
Doctor reached out to me. I'm very accessible, by the way, online, on Facebook, on by the phone too. Um, Doctor reaches out to me and says, "Hey, I saw you guys are carrying the Shining 3D printing equipment." I said, "Yeah, we do." And he said, "I want to buy one of your bundles." And I said, "Okay. Tell me a little bit about what you're trying to accomplish." He says, "Well, we've been looking at this for a long time, and we don't really know what we want to do with it, but we want to buy it. What's your return policy?" And I said, "Okay, I'm going to tell you right now that large equipment is very difficult. When you They literally deliver it to us with a seal on the package. And if that seal is broken, meaning if you take a carpenter's knife to it to attempt to open the box, when you break that seal, you own it. Now,
and that's from the manufacturer that
that's from
you're
the
purchasing
manufacturers."
from. Yeah,
And he said, "Yeah, but you can do something." And I said, "I'm telling you right now, whether you take the carpenter's knife to it or I do, you own
hmm
it." I said, "Let's talk a little bit more." So we talked 5, 10 minutes more. I remember I was in my driveway. I was trying to go into my house and he wouldn't let me off the phone. And I was pacing back and forth talking to him. And I said, "Doc, don't buy this equipment. Come to our course." We had a course about a month ago. He and his wife came, enjoyed the seminar, ended up buying some of our stuff, ended up buying a different curing system.
hmm
Um, Ironically or coincidentally, I'm actually going to his office tomorrow to actually do a little bit of a follow up media type event at his place with the equipment that just got delivered. I'm hand delivering some other equipment he bought from us, that hand pieces and stuff, and some rodent resin. And I'm actually bringing Jamin, our tech, our lead tech here in house with me. We're going to go out to his place. We're going to install his information. We're going to calibrate his printer. We're going to get his wash going. We're going to show him the rodent and go through it. But for me, people are like, "Wow, the margin in this equipment isn't that great." I'm like, "No, it's not." But for me, it's about letting you know that that's the kind of treatment you're going to get from us, right? So if I'm willing, if me in this company, if I'm willing to go out, travel, I'm heading that way anyway, not to his
right.
place, but I'm heading toward that. It's getting me closer to where
Yeah,
I need to be anyway. But if I can go out there and actually sit with this guy, what a great case study. He told me, he said, "I've never had a salesperson tell me not to buy something." I said, "Well, I'm not a salesperson. First off, I'm into this for the long term, meaning I want to develop good, solid sales. Of course, we have to pay the bills, right?
sure.
But I want to build a community. I want people to say, 'Man, he didn't just sell me stuff. He actually showed me how to make money.'" Because that message, as you said, peer to peer, social networking, just this
hmm
whole keyboard warrior stuff can be a good
Yep.
thing. It's not always a negative. If I can make that impression on people, there's a company here in Las Vegas that does a very good job at that. They're fantastic at customer service. They'll teach you how to use something they don't even sell you, right? They built their business on that. It's a very robust business. Um, they built it based on those principles. So I'm trying to steal smart. I take little nuggets of things that I think are bright spots, things that I think people are doing well, and I try to incorporate. I spoke to one of our local guys. He's a orthodontist. And this, again, this is all playing into why we're doing this stuff. He reached out to us, or no, I'm sorry. I reached out to him and said, hey, doc, from an orthodontist standpoint, give me some buzzwords for 3D printing. He's like, oh, man, I can't hire a tech. I don't have room for it in my practice. He's got 6 practices. He's got plenty of room. But, oh, I don't want to do, hiring is impossible. I can't even get hygienists. I can't even get this. I can't even get that. And he goes, but it's funny you're asking me this because I'm going to an event at UNLV tomorrow. And I'll send me a list of questions that you want me to ask, and I'll ask all of the people that are at the event. Al and I were sitting in our office. He called the next day and said, you guys got to get over here. You got to get over here. This is the most amazing stuff I've ever seen. And I'm like, oh, okay. So the skeptic is now in.
Right.
But again, look at what happened. He was, oh, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this. First off, I don't live and breathe by I can'ts, and neither does he. He's very successful. Once he went and saw how simple it was, once he went and saw, now there was a fantastic speaker. She was really well known in the 3D world. She probably spelled it out perfectly and beautifully and whatever else. She's got 16 printers in her home. Wow. Like, she is a printing nerd.
I remember, I think it was 2017, it might have been 2016, but the ADA meeting was in Washington, D.C. And I went there, and I think that was the first time that I'd ever seen a 3D printer at a dental show. And the people were showing me what it would do, and they were, look at, you can print this, and they were showing me the stuff, and it was just amazing. But then when I had to like work with their software and design something, the software back then was like made for engineers, and you could design anything. Like you could design an automotive part with it, or a button for a radio or whatever. Right. And it was so complicated that I was like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get this. This is like Photoshop on acid. It was incredibly complicated. Yeah. And now with AI, the AI has made this so much easier that oftentimes designing stuff is just, you say, like make an occlusal guard, and it says, okay, give me your models. All right, just zip, you drag and drop the models, and like, is this how they go together? And yeah, next. Is this how thick you want the mouth guard or the occlusal guard? I'm like, yeah, next. And it's like, okay, this is what we think it ought to look like. And it shows this thing to you on the model, on the screen. And you're like, oh, that's pretty much what I want. Next. Yeah. And then it says, hey, is this how you want the opposing teeth to go together? And it shows you a color map that like shows the occlusion and everything. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. Next. It's like, okay, this is what it's going to look like when it comes out of the printer. And I'm like, spin it around the screen. Okay, next. Okay, then click the print button. Print, and the printer goes, wah. I mean, that's the thing that I want people to know, is that this isn't like, designing a jet turbine or flying a 747. These systems have gotten so smart. And I think a lot of docs that, were kind of interested in it, they looked at it and then they're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to spend 3 hours designing a bleaching tray. I just rather pour up a model. But this has evolved so much since a lot of people looked at it, that it's so simple.
You and I both know that this isn't common sense. It isn't something that they necessarily taught you in school, or even folks that are coming out of school now.
Yep.
They're not necessarily learning the step-by-step of unboxing, balancing, calibrating, making sure that it's accurate. Because again, dentistry is, look, nothing is perfect, right? Your job is to get it as close to perfect as you possibly can.
And then put it into an imperfect environment, might I add?
We totally do, right?
Yeah.
So, but your job is to get as close as possible. The software can only take you so far, but if you don't know how to use it, if you don't know how to plug the computer in, like the old adage of like tech support, well, sir, is your computer on? It's like, oh crap, you have to turn it on for it to work?
Yeah.
Like, there is some common sense to these things, and they've made it so simple. But man, just networking things together, like we talked about earlier, networking things together to where they can be plug and play. You send a file to the printer, the wash knows exactly how long it's supposed to wash. It knows how many units are coming. It knows when to cut. Then it puts it into the cure, and it knows exactly how long because it's all networked together. That in and of itself, when you say the word network to a dentist, they run away. They think of
Yeah.
insurance network. They think of
Yeah.
out of
Yeah.
network or in network. Or how can I get away with no insurance? But this is true technology that makes your life so much easier. But man, if you don't know how to do it, you don't know how to do it, right? So
Right.
you can get away now, come to a 2-day course that's 3/4 of it's hands on.
Yes.
You can literally walk away feeling confident that you'll understand the tech. It's super, super simple. You'll use it in person. You'll see the reaction. You'll see the perfection or the closest
Yep.
to perfection that you can get to that comes out of these machines and how little footprint they take.
It's funny because you're right. There's so many applications for this. And, I've had doctors tell me, oh, well, I don't do a lot of dentures or, I don't do a lot of implants. So this really isn't for me. And
Yeah.
it's like, no, I mean, do you whiten teeth?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, every dental assistant that I've ever talked to, when I say, what gets you up in the morning? They don't say algid impressions and pouring and trimming models and running a vacuum former.
Yeah.
When you can just do the simple stuff and then work up to it. And like the occlusal guard thing, I'm just blown away at how, it used to take 2 or 3 weeks and then they come in and, I'm Catholic, so I would like look at the case and I do this real quick, please let it snap into place the way it's supposed to. And please let there not be, one tooth that's out of alignment that's like shoving into it. And then they're like, no, I think over here. And you grind, 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 grind. When you can just take these things and see it all beforehand
Yeah.
and quickly and easily, you're not spending 20 minutes adjusting this thing in the software. And you're like, here, put this in. And they go click and you say bite down. And they're like, okay, feels good. And you like, take the paper out and you check it and you're like, this is exactly what it looked like in the software. And then
And
you're like,
that's
there
an
you go.
interesting point. So I talked to a doc who's going to come on and do a show. I think maybe you'll collaborate
Okay,
or so. Um, and I won't name her name because we're not published yet.
gotcha.
But it'll be
Understand.
soon. She and I have a great relationship. Half for years. She's wonderful, wonderful.
She is, I know you're talking about,
You know what I'm talking about.
she's a great human being and a
She
great,
really
great
is like
dentist,
great
great clinician.
clinician,
Yep.
great human being, great speaker, like sells out rooms. Like she's
Yeah.
really, really good. So I reached out and I said, hey, are you doing any 3D printing? And she said, yeah, I mean, we do a lot of digital dentistry. And I said, really? Okay. Well, let's talk about it because I may have an opportunity that we could do
Yeah.
together. And so she's telling me, oh, yeah, I do full dentures. I do a course on full dentures and all digital dentistry, A to Z, digital dentistry. I'm like, oh, wow, great. So just passively, I said, well, what equipment do you have? And she's like, exocad. And I go, no, no, no. I mean, like the hardware. Like, what are you printing on?
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
goes, oh, I don't own a printer. And I go, okay, this conversation just took a turn.
Right.
But now I'm more intrigued. Like, you do dentures and you bought a printer. Okay, that makes sense. It's
Yeah.
common. 38% of the doctors in the country have at least purchased this stuff. That's the stat I heard. Doesn't mean they're all using it, but
Right. Yeah.
38% bought. So I said, Doc, why? Like, why? And she said, I can show a customer through digital dentistry. This is nothing we could do before. I
Right.
can show a customer who has 0 teeth or maybe has 5 good ones and the rest have to go. I can
Right.
show them exactly how they're going to look when I'm done. And I can take that
Bingo.
file, I can take that digital workflow, and I can actually program it if they're satisfied with it. And I'm saying, hey, this is going to cost $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. It doesn't matter. Whatever the price is, I can say, hey, Gertrude, here's what you're going to look like after you make this investment. We can worry about the finance. We figure all that stuff out.
Yeah.
But this is the process that I'm going through. I scanned your mouth. I put in the pins. I put in the plate. I did all the maneuvering. I got it
Right.
into my software, and I show you exactly what you look like, all within an hour, call it, because she's probably really good at it.
Yeah.
Um, and if the customer says, wow, I'll look amazing for the first time in my life,
Right.
whatever the selling point is, then they say, okay, now we can talk about the finance. Here's what's going to cost. What do you want to move
Yeah.
forward? We go through insurance. It'll cover this or it won't cover this, whatever the math is money wise. But that customer, if they say yes, which she's like 9 times out of 10, which it used to be like 5 out of 10,
Right.
they say, oh, I need to go get a second opinion. Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a big. Now they're saying, wow, I look amazing. That's what I want to be. I'm doing this. So now it isn't really about selling. It's about taking that, John, here's what you're going to look like.
Yep.
Here's how I got to this point. Here's how I'm going to make you look. And if you like it, I'm going to press save, right? And I'm going to take that file exactly the way you want to look, exactly the way that I want it to look, right? From a professional standpoint. And
Right.
I'm going to send it off to a really, really good lab who does amazing work. And guess what? It's going to come back exactly the way that I sent it, exactly the way that you wanted it to. You're going to look exactly the way that I told you through digital dentistry. And otherwise, it's like, hey, John, trust me, it'll look good.
Right.
Right. So then another aspect was you got a 90-year-old patient comes in. They still have some good bones. So there's
Right.
some work you could do. Are you really going to charge them 30, 40 grand
Yeah.
when they're 90 years old?
You
Like, let's
know,
be honest. And I'm not being cold,
yeah.
but I don't know you're going to get an ROI on that
Well,
as a
and
human.
we have patients. I mean, we all do. If you've got any older patients at all, I mean, I've had patients come into me and look at me and say, look, for as long as I'm going to be around, can you do something that, is going to last me that long,
Yeah.
you
Right.
know,
Right.
and let me still function, everything else. And I don't have to pay what I would pay if I was 30 and I would, need to keep it for, 20 years or whatever.
Right.
And it's another Catholic joke, but it is kind of true. I literally tell patients on stuff like this. I'm like, I said, I don't call these permanent. I call them purgatory restorations. And I say, because they're not temporary and I don't know if they're permanent, but they're kind of in between.
Yeah.
But if you can, I think of, like an older patient or like a young guy out of college and he comes in and he's got student loan debt and he graduated 2 months ago and he's got an entry level job, but he's going to be successful.
Yeah.
And he's like, I've got these two broken teeth and I want to be able to eat, but I don't have all that cash to do all the perfect stuff right now. I'm like, hey, you know what? $500 a piece, we can do purgatory crowns on you.
Yeah.
And you know what? If they last 5 years, well, you've got 5 years worth of savings built up.
Yeah.
And go out and do that. And I don't think there's anything at all wrong with that to tell people, I'm kind of trying to buy you some time.
Well, yeah.
And as
Whether you're
long as they
old,
go into it knowing that, what's wrong with that?
no, there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, look, it's all safe for the mouth. It all has
Yeah.
to go through FDA. There's
Yep.
no, we're not, I mean, some people are using the gargoyle stuff.
Yep.
I always associate that to if you're using a resin off of like Amazon or
Hmm.
eBay or wherever you buy stuff.
Right.
If you're buying a resin that isn't necessarily established, God, man, you're putting yourself at risk. It's kind of similar to, and I've had this debate with other people about handpieces. There was a
Hmm.
brand out there called Yangi Bangi or something like that. They were the garbage handpieces, but they were $10. You could buy a surgical for $10, right? And
Oh,
so we have a very large catalog of FDA documents in our
right.
company because we're 100% legitimized
Sure. Yeah.
FDA and the Board of Pharmacy and the EPA and some other regulatory things. Um, those handpieces are not cleared by the FDA. They don't have 510K. They're being imported under the table. And so, okay, yeah, but they're $10, man. I could buy 100 of them, for
Right.
1,000. And I'm like, okay, but you could also lose your license. You could
Yep.
get sued. They
Yep.
can take everything you've worked so hard to
Right.
build, all to save a couple bucks on a handpiece. Like, why don't we get our priorities straight, right? I feel the same way about resins right now.
Biocompatibility,
There's
you
a
don't.
fundamental difference between don't put the toys in your mouth
Yes.
versus let's put a crown in your mouth
Yeah.
that's contaminated by this toxin.
Yep.
So I think it's super important that people are educated, both on what to use, not stuffing a particular brand down your throat. More
Yeah.
so, this is what it can do for you.
And I think it's important when you get into something like this. I think it's important, doctor, go online, do some research, at least kind of figure out, like what the tech can do and then sort of roadmap yourself a little bit. Because what I've found in my career is sometimes I'll buy stuff where I'm like, I just want basic. And then I get the basic of whatever it is, and I realize, okay, I can do this, I can do this. And then I'm like, oh, and I want to do, now that I'm comfortable, now I want to do this.
Yeah.
And then it becomes, oh, it won't do that. And I'm like, duh. And and then sometimes I regret that I should have bought, the one that does more.
Well, that's an
So I think it
interesting.
helps just to realize, have a thought of where you're going. And if you
Yeah.
say, well, in 3 years, I want to be doing, this new thing.
Yeah.
Well, then by then you've gotten your ROI and you can move that one out of the way and put another one in.
It goes back to the education. It's either learn it before you go or start small and go, right?
And
And I
that's what
think
I
both of
love
them are
about,
viable.
yeah, yeah. And that's what I love about your philosophy of come out, learn about it, tinker with it when you don't own it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
spend a day and a half just diving into it and really figuring out, you know, how to use it. And then you can go home and go, that's the one I want.
Yeah.
Or I want to look at, like, oh, do I want this model that does this or do I want that model? But when you're looking at something and somebody says, you know, it'll do, 50 microns, but this one is limited to 150 microns. And you're like, well, why do I care about that? If you don't
Right.
know,
Right.
you can't make those decisions.
Oh, and
And
the resins too. The resins are
yes,
getting so expensive, right? And
yeah,
and they're doing that because they can. They're
hmm,
creating a longer term solution. The CEREC machine. I've had three of these. This is my. Wow. I'm sorry. I'm assuming it's going to break. So I've had two of these. Two, and this was in probably 2000. When did CEREC first come out with their little machine that you could actually put in your practice?
that was
2005 or six, maybe, or seven or eight.
probably three, I think, is when they actually broke it down. The Ep.1 and the Ep.2 actually were a combination of the scanner and a little tiny milling unit in the
Yeah.
same box that you wheeled around. But when they separated it, that was Ep.3, and that was probably, it was very early 2000s. It was
Okay.
2001, 2002, somewhere in
I remember I went to my doc in Chicago, and I
there. Huh?
I I had to get a root canal. So he did a root canal, and then they capped it. And I sat. He goes, no, you don't have to schedule it. We'll do it right here. Can you wait like 40 minutes? I said, yeah. So I sat next to the machine and listened to it make all those noises.
Yeah.
And while it was making my tooth, yeah, it's not quite as sadistic as an MRI, but kind of in the same category or vein. So I sat there and I thought, wow, this is amazing. I don't have to come back. And again, I'm super busy. My time is not
Right?
my own typically, and I thought this is absolutely, I can burn 45 minutes here, no problem, versus having to come all the way back here again. So
Yes.
they put it in. It lasted, I don't think it was 2003. I think it was more like 2010, 11, or 12.
Okay.
So maybe that's just when he got it.
Yeah,
But
could
it was a
be.
brand new machine. He was so stoked, and he said it was like 100 grand, $68,000, or something like
Yeah.
that.
They're a
But I
little
said,
bit.
well,
Yeah.
you got 1,000 for me, so that you're chipping away at the debt. But so I leave, and like I think it was during. Oh, no. So it broke in like 5 years.
Okay.
It shattered. Now I'm an aggressive eater. I'm a foodie. I'm an
Yep.
aggressive eater. So it was probably
You're
in
good
part my
cooks
fault.
too, by the way. You're good in the
I,
kitchen.
I'm all right. So then I broke that. So I went back. I said, dude, you got to print another one. Is it because it was a new machine for you or whatever? I have to throw little jabs. But he goes, no. It's just whatever. So we do another one, pop it in. It's all good. I leave. COVID hits. It's
Yep.
2020, probably like maybe like May or June. And I'm on a plane, and I might have been the only one on it. And I was eating almonds. They give you the little cup of almonds, so I'm
Yep.
eating the almonds, and I crunch. And some of the almonds, I think, on the airline, certainly during COVID, were really stale. So they warm them up to try to cover that up. But I'm eating the almond, and I'm crunching down. I'm like, what the heck? This is the worst almond I've ever eaten in my life. I spit it out in my hand, and it was my crown in pieces.
I'll say you feel like this almond feels like a tooth. Oh, Wait a
Oh, it is a
minute.
tooth.
Yeah,
I'm like, wow,
exactly.
that's really white. And so I had, and in COVID, I couldn't get a replacement.
Yeah,
So I had to go about, it must have been like 6 months. So I convinced my doctor here in Las Vegas. I'm like, dude, you got to put a crown, you got to give me a crown. This
yeah,
isn't an emergency, but it's a freaking emergency. I haven't
yeah.
had a tooth in 6 months here. I've got a ground down mutant looking thing, and it's not working. Because again, let's go back to what I said before. I'm an aggressive eater. I got to
Yep.
have that crown. So, and it's back here. So third molar. So I he gives me I get another one. So now this is my so one
Third.
broke. First one
Yep.
broke, got the other one. Now this is my third. So I assume it's going to break again. Now it's been 5 years because it was like around this time in
Yeah.
2020, maybe a little bit later. But yeah, I couldn't get in to see anybody, and then 6 months later, I ended up getting in to see
Yep.
somebody, and they gave it to me. But the reality for me is, I look at that and I say, okay, it's fine. It happens. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
But you mean to tell me that a 3D printed crown with 70% ceramic zirconia in it isn't going to be as good as this or
Yeah.
close to?
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
maybe instead of 6 years, it goes 5 years. But I mean, really, let's be honest. What's the difference? This wasn't and this is the one, like, that's the machine. That's the
Yeah.
one. You're like,
Yep.
or you're sending it off to a lab that's using something even better. I don't know. But this thing broke and it broke again.
Yeah.
So what am I going to do? So you can't tell me that you can't provide a solution to someone who
Right.
can't afford it or needs it quickly
Mm-hmm.
or has an immediate or is 95 years old and just wants a damn crown,
Yeah.
um,
I just want
there's
to be
a
able to eat, you know.
there's a good place in this world, I think, for 3D printing. It's not all philanthropy. It's just practical. Maybe bring a practical approach to certain
Yep.
customers. The ones that you know can afford it, have them, they want to pay for it. Look, there's a fundamental difference between a Ralph Lauren t-shirt and a Fruit of the
Yes.
Loom t-shirt. They're both t-shirts. They both cover your
Right.
top, but one is a little bit silkier or nicer. One's going to last a little bit
Right.
longer. One isn't going to shrink in the dryer like the other one. I mean, there is a time and place for everything. But I've got some great Fruit of the Loom t-shirts that are amazing. I've had for years and years and years. So there's a time and place for everything. And I think 3D is just another example of kind of an evolution of dentistry, an evolution of it could also bring this evolution of relationship back.
And
Yeah.
one other thing before we wrap up that I want to
Yeah.
talk about, because you made a really good point earlier when you were talking about the digital dentures of being able to show somebody, look at this, look, this is how you're going to look. One of the things about cosmetics is not every patient, but we all get these patients where they come in and they want to look different, but they're very aesthetically conscious and they're very picky. And what I love about being able to, like take and do a single, like a bridge type of thing where like all the temporaries are attached where it's one unit and you can do them individuals if you want. But you, when you prep them, or actually first you do what you said, Sean, which is you show them this is what you're going to look like.
Yeah.
And you can zoom in and zoom out and show them all these things. And they're like, yes, that's how I want to look. Then when you do the temporaries are done using that same design so that now they look exactly like they're going to look in the finals. And one of the things that every dentist that's ever done any kind of cosmetics at all is you do get these people where you finish it and then they look at it and they're like, well, can you like just round that just a little? And then I think maybe this is sticking out just a little bit so we could do. And when you can do this all in the temporaries,
Yeah.
change the designs, do all this stuff, and then wear this for a month.
Yeah.
Wear this for 6 months or 6 weeks or whatever, knowing that you're using something like rodent sculpture 2 that is made for permanent stuff
Yeah.
that you can then, put on with temp cement so that then when you put those finals in, those finals are an exact duplicate.
Yeah.
And then you don't have that thing of, well, in the temporaries, this was kind of rounded and now it feels kind of flat or whatever. Because, like I said, it doesn't happen all the time, but some people do that.
Sure.
And you mentioned Young Frankenstein. I always think when people tell me these stories about these cases, I always think of that, he like looks up at the sky as the monster wanders off and he says, "My God, what have I done?" Sometimes you get that, but when you
Yeah.
can work it all out ahead of time,
Yeah. Well, especially in
it's so much easier.
a high ticket environment. So a shameless
Yes.
plug. You mentioned
Yeah.
sculpture.
Yep.
I happen to have Sculpture 2.0 right here.
Hey, there it
Vanna White,
is.
if you will. A Vanna
Yeah.
White, if you will. Is Vanna White still on the
Honestly,
Wheel
I
of
don't
Fortune?
know.
Because
I
I
don't even
heard
know if Pat
some other guy
Sajak
is
is
the
still around
host.
there.
Sajak's not.
Okay.
It's some young guy that's doing it
Huh.
now. We
Okay.
sound like a couple old farts. It's
We
one of those young
we do.
whippersnappers.
Yeah.
But
With
no,
that
Vanna White,
rock
I
and roll
imagine.
rubbish in that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hey, John, this has been great. I really look forward to the other episodes. I think the one thing I want to say in close is essentially we're happy to have partnered with you on this initiative, and we really do feel like you're a perfect partner. The writing that you've done, the technology that you've done, the panels that you sit on, you're in the know, and we feel like it's an excellent partnership both for us, but also for our audience and the people that are going to come out to our courses, the people that will see at trade shows, the people that are going to reach out to us for our consultations. They're going to know that it's coming from a little bit of a intellectual background first off, but also some clinical support behind us. Having you on board for this, I think is great. I think you're gonna interview some really cool people. People are going to learn a lot, and we're happy to provide that for people. We're trying to build a culture of knowledge, and we want to build teams that can provide that knowledge. I don't claim to be an expert in essentially much, but I will tell you that what I am good at is networking and bringing people together, and that's what I feel. Our Medidenta's partnership with John Flucke is excellent for us because we feel like you're going to be able to provide that peer to peer knowledge base. You're going to be able to extract the information better than I could. I could come up with some junk answers from Chat GPT, but you guys are living in it and breathing in it and speak the same language, so to say. So thank you, and I look forward to the next one.
And I want to say thank you for this partnership because I can bring what I bring, but there's no way that I was going to build a state-of-the-art educational facility and then say, and give me enough equipment to allow all these people to come in and play with it and try it and all that kind of thing. I can talk to the doctors about it and I can speak the language, but I don't have, the piece that you have. So this is just such great synergy
Yeah, for sure.
because it's going to allow us to let people really figure this out. And there's a proverb, it says, I hear, I forget, I see, I remember, I do, then I understand. And this gives, and then the fourth step would be, and then I can buy if I want to.
If you
And
want to,
I
yeah.
just love that. I
Yeah.
really do.
No, I think it's cool. So yeah, I look forward to it. We've got an event in June.
Yep.
So anybody that's listening to this, look us up. Go to medidentadigital.com, learn a little bit more, check out other podcasts, other information
Yep.
base, other
They've got
blogs.
lots of speakers other than me that they're working with. So there may be other
Yeah.
things that are more in your wheelhouse than I am. I'm not offended. Take a look, but they're good people and they got good stuff. So definitely check them out.
All right, guys. Take care,
All right.
man.
Take care. Thanks,
All
Sean.
right. See you, buddy.